Good to see you, Peter, at the Sustainability Conference. Can you talk about the state of the transport sector and the sustainability therein?
Obviously, the transport sector at the moment is under pressure. You know, the rates are very, very low. And I think the sustainability is do or die at the moment. Like, can we, while these rates are so low, still get an economical solution that includes sustainability? Or do we fall back to our normal wasteful methods? And we believe that we actually can. We can save you money and be sustainable at the same time. Something that's in dire need at the moment.
And Telematics is obviously a massive player in the sustainable, or in the sort of efficiency of the transport industry. You must have seen great improvements there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think specifically our fuel solution, for example, we see massive improvements, not only in cost reduction, because as you know, fuel 50-60% of your operating cost. If we can shave off between 3 and 5%, which we typically do, that goes straight to your bottom line. On top of that, it helps sustainability.
Absolutely, and what are the benefits of fleet managers knowing exactly where the trucks are at all times?
Yeah, but I think, well, that's a benefit, to be honest. That's a 15-year-old benefit.
Yeah.
I don't think really that's it anymore. Where we really now is like, what data can we get and how can we implement the data? So it's not only getting the data, it's what can we do to actually help, for example, this driver drive better, perform better. Now, the example I can give you, I'm a terrible driver. My consumption just sucks, but I make that choice personally. A driver shouldn't make that choice. A driver should drive as economical as he can. And the way to do that is we feel is by rewarding him and not necessarily by punishing him. So how we do it is we work together with the transporters as almost a consultancy. So we're moving from a telematics provider to almost a consultancy. And how can we put in programs in place that reward the driver and bring the overall performance up and increase it?
Absolutely, and cross-border is a big thing for you guys. What are some of the ways to mitigate long waiting times?
So a couple of things. So what we're doing on sort of government level and NGO level, we work quite closely with World Bank and USAID to put systems in place or measures in place to make it a one-stop border post, like we've done in Chirundu, and we then support them with data to actually see what the effect is. We reduced the paperwork through them, which I think all had quite an effect, and we typically went from 22 hours to 18, and we're now at 14 hours at Byte Bridge, to give you an example. The next step for us is how can we now motivate the drivers to perform better at the border post? Because we see we're at a limit what we can do with the government. And we do see that specifically the drivers, specifically sort of being around it, it's almost a hub of social activity, if I
so that
can call it.
Explain why you spend 14 hours.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a definite correlation between fuel theft and the border post.
And you must have seen a reduction in accidents through responsible driving.
Absolutely. Reduction in accidents, and the funny thing is reduction in cost, because our program very much works around reward the top 5% of your drivers significantly, but your other 95% are trying anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not about those top 5 and the performance they do; it's about the overall performance, and that's where we see is the real win, and that is a few steps further than just the location of the truck.
And you must get a tremendous amount of data from your software and whatnot. How do you streamline that into information for clients?
That's the big challenge. So we have a very big R&D team with data scientists, some very smart PhD mathematicians who know and understand this stuff much better than I do. But we also work together. We have a partnership, for example, with IBM Watson, where we provide them a lot of our data, and they've got IBM Watson, the artificial intelligence system, to pull out more data and reports on, and to see where we can influence and where are sort of the easy quick wins that we can do to improve transport. And that's something we try to do as for an industry as a whole, because we believe if we help the industry, the industry will help us.
And you must be pushing the cutting edge of what's the next step in telematics?
I think it's all around, much more about artificial intelligence. So in other words, predict what's going to happen. Predict if the truck is going to be delayed. Predict or model which are your good drivers, which are your bad drivers. So we see in one way there's a stream of really this prediction and there's really data modeling. And the other thing is, I think, is much more openness of data. Like we publish these border data, waiting times every week to anybody who wants to see them. But we want to go and take that a step further and maybe even start to publish driver performance. So if you want to hire a driver, that you come to us and say, listen, can you tell me the performance of this driver, like almost like a CV, and thereby, really again creating a pressure and like your Uber, if you ever drive an Uber, the Uber drivers are sensational about getting 5 stars. They want to get 5 stars. Now we want to create that for the drivers. We want to create a system in the industry that will motivate the drivers to get 5 stars, because they'll get better jobs, they'll get better remuneration, they'll get a better life.
And what's the impact on the economy?
Hopefully better, and we see it because, for example, border waiting times, nobody wins. The driver doesn't win, government doesn't win, transporter doesn't win, the end user doesn't win. It's just a lot of paperwork. Fuel theft or fuel consumption, again, the driver doesn't really win because he doesn't sell the fuel, the diesel at 10 rand a litre, he sells it for 5 rand a litre. So, just by giving him a 4 or 5 rand reward times 100 litres or 200 litres, 1,000, 1,500 rand a month, you're going to save 5,000-6,000 rand a month.
Exactly.
So we're looking at, if you look really at it, I believe you can find solutions that make a win-win-win.
So that's almost positive reinforcement.
Absolutely. Look, you still need your negative.
Yeah.
You'll have your rotten apples, you'll have the guys that, frankly, they need to find another job. I can't put it any other way. But ultimately, 95% of your drivers, you can, by positive reinforcement, I think, increase. And yes, you have to do both.
And autonomous driving, how far away are we from that?
I think if we live in Europe, it's fantastic. If you live in Africa, I think we're still a good 15, 20 years away. And not from a technology, just purely the roads aren't ready for it. The trucks itself are not ready for it. Maintenance, all these points have a big impact.
South Africa is a leader in telematics globally. What do you put that down to?
I think we had a great head start due to our sort of more criminal aspects of it. But on top of that, which to me is very interesting, let's take CarTrack, which I just read hit £1 billion revenue, and who came late to the market. I think what we have in South Africa, we have a very entrepreneurial and very, make a plan mindset, which is great to see, because what happens is whatever works here, we have adapted it, and we can now adapt it to other areas in the US, in Europe, in Asia, and we're very proficient at that, I think, as Africans.
And do you ever see a time where we can have no borders? Southern Africa has an agreement to smooth trade?
Look, I think it's in there. It's politics. Who can tell? I think ultimately that's obviously where we want to go to. South Africa can be a big driver in there because ultimately, it has one of the biggest ports. It would make a lot of sense. Will it happen? Who knows?
I remember you saying you see more accidents in South Africa than north of the border. What do you put that down to?
I think,
or not so much accident, but just claims in general.
Claims in general. I think there's a lot more pressure in local transport on turnaround times. There's a lot more freedom for cross-border. A truck goes away for 3 weeks. If it's 21 days or 20 or 22, it's sort of okay. So the pressure's not up. If you drive Durban, Johannesburg, that's a different story. It's 8 hours. You can't do 9, you can't do 7. It's 8. And I think that creates some pressure. I think the pressure on the charges, on the load prices being so low obviously results in operating cost being looked at, and maybe maintenance not being done as it should, because the money is not there, and that needs a radical change. Maintenance needs to happen, and actually will save you on the longer term. So stop looking at the short term, but change your company, change your structure to make really an effect.
Could you legislate that you need a certain amount of technology that can tell if your car's roadworthy or not?
Well, interestingly enough, in Kenya they're quite far, so they definitely have a system in place where the police can actually check through a tracking system. When was the last service? How many kilometers have you done? When did you stop? They can also see on the container whether it has been opened or not. So their border crossing time is about 30 to 40 minutes, rather than 14 hours. So definitely technology can help, but again, technology is just a tool.
It's only as good as the person behind it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time, sir.
Thanks a lot.